Hey folks, welcome back to the Sedgwick Jimmy channel, and today we're going to be looking at the Children's Crusade. Now, the Children's Crusade wasn't the typical type of crusade with knights and people sanctioning, but hey, they took and then lost Jerusalem. So, we got that. Instead, the Children's Crusade was one of several popular crusades. Basically, the people mobilized rather than the military. And to understand the Children's Crusade, you have to look at the story and then the facts. In 1212, a child in either France or a Germanic state began preaching about being visited by a vision of Christ that instructed them to create an army of children that was to march to the Holy Land and peacefully convert Muslims to Christianity. He's able to build a following of about 30,000 people and head to the Mediterranean under the belief that the sea would part before them and allow the Crusaders to walk to Jerusalem. Of course, they get to the sea doesn't part. They instead get sold into slavery and or die in a shipwreck. So not the best ending, I suppose. See, here's the thing. History is a mixture of fact and folklore, and often we have a difficult time blurring the lines between the two. This is not one of those cases. The story of the Children's Crusade is from two different incidents that were eventually merged and added in. The story of the Children's Crusade is from two different incidents that were eventually merged and added upon. So what's the truth? Well, in order to find out, we need to talk about Nicholas of Cologne and Stephan of Calais. Nicholas was a shepherd in the Rhineland who claimed that he had been instructed to travel to the Holy Land and reclaim them not by war but by converting the Muslims to Christianity. He traveled around the Germanic states and gathered a large group together in Cologne. They ended up splitting into two groups to head through the Swiss Alps into Italy. Unfortunately, about 2/3 of them died during the journey, a good number saying to hell with this and went home, and they arrived in the port city of Genoa with about 7,000 people. Now, Nicholas had claimed that the sea would part before them, and of course, it didn't. However, the city officials were kind of impressed with the group and offered citizenship to any of them that chose to stay, which the majority took that offer. Nicholas wasn't having it, so he traveled with his few remaining followers to the Papal States and met with Pope Innocent III, who told them to go home. Nicholas ended up dying during his journey back across the Alps, and just to add insult to injury, his father was arrested and hung by the local officials due to his son being responsible for the deaths of so many. So yeah, that didn't end very well at all. But of course, then there's this kid. Stephan of Calais was a 12-year-old boy, also a shepherd, and he claimed to be given a letter by Christ calling for him to lead a new crusade to Jerusalem. He traveled around France spreading his preachings and supposedly performed miracles in Saint Denis. His group eventually grew to about 30,000 people, a large portion being children, though it ended up falling apart rather quickly. Seeing as King Philip II wasn't impressed by a group led by a kid and just told them to go home. Plus, they were constantly starving and begging for food, and such the movement just kind of fizzled out. No one's quite sure what happened to Stephen after all this. So, the real Children's Crusade was two different but pretty much concurrent movements in 1212 between the 4th and 5th Crusades that still leaves a lot of questions that need to be answered. An interesting idea to keep in mind is that at the time, Europe had rather large groups of what were called the wandering poor, and these people greatly helped bolster the numbers of these movements. Some also claim that the original events of the Children's Crusade helped create the story of the Pied Piper, though the jury's still out on that one. The Children's Crusade was a reflection of its time and place, an offer of salvation in an uncertain world. And that's just going to about do it for this episode. If you'd like what we're doing here, why don't you give us a like? If you'd like to see more in the future, give us a subscribe. And if you have anything to add, or if you have any ideas for future videos, just let us know down in the comments. We appreciate you being here, and we'll see you back here next time for more Sedgwick Jimmy. Come check it out.